was really fascinated that, I wasn't sure how folks were going to react, right? Wait, you're having a party, but it's a fundraiser, but wait, what? But then there's this family, who, right? And people got it right away. And the immediate reaction was, that's really cool. I want to support that. And, we didn't know it, not ever having done this before, right? Having this come from this crazy combination of Mark talking and Ben sort of listening. I was impressed by how people responded and how they kind of got it. And we sort of built it from there.
That was going to be my follow-up question, was there a moment you realized that this partnership was really working?
Yeah, and but one of the things, and you were talking about what you learned from the event, one of the things that I learned from the event was that you don't know your allies until you ask. In some ways, all of a sudden it hit me. It was like, wow, these people are, supporting us, and I wouldn't have thought maybe they would have. But if you don't ask, you're never going to know who oftentimes who your allies are. So it did teach me that, like, okay, you need to get out there and try to find those allies. And we need them more now than we probably have in many, many years, with everything that's happening and the battles that we're up against. So that was one of the things I learned from it.
Just building on that, I think I knew it was a success. Well, first, Darra's first reaction was, and the Family Equality team and Tanya and Molly and everyone was, yes. There a lot of the staff, including Darra, are new, so folks didn't necessarily know us. And when these crazy gay guys show up and say, "Hi, we want to raise some money for you. What do you think?" At our party, when the immediate yes came through, I knew we were onto something. But to Mark's point, when we started seeing support from all kinds of folks, it was just without even really, we didn't do a hard ask, right? We posted on LinkedIn and we sent emails, but it was sort of like, we're doing this. If you'd like to support us, please do. But we weren't like, you have to give money. And it was interesting to see, we have several good friends and very, positions of authority and influence who made big donations, which is really wonderful. I won't out any of them. But then we have several professional acquaintances, heads of major trade associations in the energy environment space that have, nothing to do with family equality, who were immediately enthusiastic, wanted to donate, right? And some of them wanted to meet Darra and wanted to know more about family equality. And I thought, well, I didn't see that. The PR guy should have seen that coming. I didn't. And, to Mark's point, I think what we did with this is we gave people an opportunity to do something, right? It's everyone feels sort of helpless right now. And, oh my God, what can we do? And there's so much happening. And every day there's another outrage, pick the topic: healthcare, defense, personal freedoms, equality, liberty, civil rights, whatever it is. And we gave people an outlet. Here's a thing you can do that is tangible. You can go celebrate with your friends at RENEWPR. That's great. You can see other folks. You can be together in community. But you can also help an organization that is helping LGBTQ families. That's a tangible thing. And I put a quote from Harvey Milk, you've got to give them hope, right? One of the things he's famous for saying. And I didn't realize how apt that was going to be to this event. I think that people really responded to that because it was a tangible thing they could do. And it was something that was positive and frankly fun.
Yeah, I think nonprofit fundraising right now is in a great position to empower people. Like you're saying, in the theme of feeling powerless, and some people are like, well, I'm just giving money, it's not a big deal. But I think when you tell those stories of how it impacts, policy and, how your fundraising impacts the organization and what they're doing, and, stories about everyday people that are affected, I think that's really what moves people to do more. And Darra, as far as this partnership, how was this event able to bring, your mission to life at this fundraiser?
So I think, there were a couple of things that surprised me. Maybe it shouldn't have, because I had an opportunity to meet Ben and Mark. But I think it was so core to who they, like, family equality was something meaningful to them, right? It wasn't, there's so many causes, to your point, right? There's so many things. And so it was meaningful to them. You can feel it. It was palpable. People came out to support and celebrate RENEWPR and celebrate them. But I think they found something more. And because it wasn't like orchestrated or to support a brand, or, you know, because it felt like it was needed, it was core in every being. And so what was so lovely and surprising is that people were enthralled. And I think there is family, it's universal, right? We all understand the importance of family, forming a family, being a family, chosen family. And so I think there was something that connected people to Ben and Mark, and then connected people to the mission of this organization. And eye-opening. I think had an opportunity to raise awareness because, you know, we're celebrating 10 years of marriage equality. It's an incredible progress. I have been able to benefit from those, you know, from that legal support with my family and my children, and, you know, in the hospitals and traveling. But one thing that I heard from folks is, wow, I didn't realize, right? I didn't realize how much more work needed to be done, how many more protections, how many more other LGBTQ people are struggling and are denied their own families, depending upon where they live or their identity or their race. And so it was such a win for us all around because it was so core in the mission and so core in the meaning for everybody.
Yeah, it's really, it's kind of sad during Pride Month, where you know, don't go on social media, but, you know, companies will put out, or a lot of sports teams, I think Major League Sports does actually a great job during Pride Month. You know, they'll put out, you know, their messages on Pride and supporting, you know, the LGBTQ plus community. And, you know, you'll see things in the comments like, oh, why do I need to hear about this? Just let everybody live their lives the way they want, blah, blah, blah. But like you're saying, I mean, there are protections and things that are still not available to that community. And that, you know, it's not just like, there's a reason that it still has to exist and that these things have to keep going on. So, I mean, because of statements like that, so to speak. So it's nice to hear that, you know, a fundraiser like this can be effective in helping propel those activities and those needs. For any of you guys in this, you know, in doing this project, what are the ingredients that you need for a mission-driven event that resonates and raises funds? I think you mentioned some of them, but curious if you have some others.
Do you want to go first, Darra, or you want us to?
Why don't you go first? I'll pick a these.
You should talk. I think your point about where the allies come from and the fundraising and why this is personal to us, even though we don't have kids.
Well, that one thing is we don't have children, but we know that kind of equity is Darra's success with family equality will help us, even though it may not specifically pertain to our lives. It will help because in general it will help with that. So when we were talking about it, I was thinking, okay, some of the groups that we were talking about, I was like, well, it's just about equality. Let's not that we need to focus on one or the other. It was because they were a client, but also because we know the effect that it can have on our whole community, and that we need to all come together. You know, we're lots of letters, right? But those letters need to support each other. It can't just be about that one letter that we are. It has to be about all. And then those families within all of those letters. So that's kind of how I see it, is that we need to all come together. We need to support each other. We are better as one than we are as all those separate letters. So I think that was a part of it, what we were looking at too.
And I think to that point, and to something that Darra said a minute ago, I think maybe part of the reason it was successful was that it was more than just us, right? And it wasn't, I mean, that was, Darra said it better than I'm about to, but it wasn't like, you know, hey, me, help me, and oh, RENEWPR. It was, there's this group and we're going to use this little platform and opportunity we have to help elevate them. And I think folks responded to that. And I think that, you know, for other people thinking about this, for any other PR firm celebrating anniversaries, go do this. Find the group you care about and
We're
tell
available too.
Right.
Well, we have a name for you. We have a number.
But I mean, seriously, people really responded to that in ways that I didn't think they were going to. You know, we were going to do this regardless, right? And we committed. We put $5,000 in to get the ball rolling. We raised a lot more than that. We raised $13,000 between us in like 2 months with not a lot of, right? It was, again, a soft sell. It wasn't. We weren't like pushing it. Although people who follow me on LinkedIn may feel differently. But I think that was part of why it was successful, because folks saw it as being something more than just us, right? And from Family Equality's perspective, they're, you know, lending their name and their organization to us too, right? Because they're showing up at our party and saying that we're worthy and valuable, and that means something too. And that it sort of demonstrates what we're trying to get across, which is Mark's point. We are all in this together, and we all have to stand up and do something, whatever that is, small, medium, large, 1 time, 10 times, whatever it is something. And you're giving people the opportunity to engage around that and to be part of that. And people appreciate that. And the number of folks who said thank you to me was just, I was like, oh, well, thank you for donating and being here. And I don't know, Darra, what you want to add to that, but that's kind of where our brains were.
I think you really, you said it best. And it is, you know, you're looking for that secret sauce, and it is really that core. I think it is about really looking through the lens of equity, partnering with each other in a very authentic way. That was very special about this event. And, you know, I can pull off all the tropes, but like all boats will rise when you do it through the lens of equity, like, and to really understand that and work with partners that understand that, pull in your friends and colleagues that get that as well. I think it just was that the connectivity of, like, you spread it out and you brought people in, and we did the same together. And again, we'll all rise together. So I thought that was really critical, right? That made this such a success.
I want to say one other thing. So when we had this idea and we were talking, you know, just the two of us talking about it, the first person we reached out to was Zeke, to say, hey, what do you think? Do you think this would work? Because if he had said this is ridiculous, you know, we probably would have either gone somewhere else or just not done it at all. And Zeke was immediately, yes, this is great. Write this up. Let's do this. The other person we went to was Annette Larkin on our team, because Annette had been with me on the Family Equality team, and I knew she knew the issues and the topics. And Annette is also straight. So I figured that's, you know, a much bigger audience than, you know, us folks. And Annette, like, right away was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. You know, yes, we have to do this. Yes, yes, yes. And I thought, okay, maybe we're onto something here, you know, with the two. And then the next sort of test was, well, let's see how Family Equality responds. And as we said, it was like, are you kidding me? You want to
no-brainer. It was a no-brainer.
So that sort of felt like, oh, now we're onto something, right?
Yeah.
And seriously, as an idea for other firms, organizations looking to celebrate anniversaries, there's lots of ways to do that. And it's funny, clients come to us, right, to say, oh, we want to celebrate our 100th anniversary, and we're going to have a logo and a tagline, and it's great. And it always sort of feels like, okay, well, 100 years is an accomplishment, and you've been serving the community and doing whatever it is you do. But it still feels sometimes a little bit like me, you know, and this is one way of many, but one avenue or one approach to try, which can do some good. And also it makes you feel good, right? I mean, I feel even better about our anniversary because we're able to talk about what we did for the last 10 years and what we want to do for the next 10 in this context of also saying, no, hi, hello, wait. Folks need help, and there are things going on. And I think, Nicole, to your point before, you know, the raising awareness that Darra was talking about, let's just stop for a moment and just acknowledge that not only are there still a lot more things to be done to bring full equality to all of us, we're going backwards. And, you know, there are real live everyday attacks on the trans community, on the LGBTQ community, on on the LGBTQ family community, right? And the ability of people like us to have kids, and, not just here, but abroad. I mean, Italy is going after surrogacy and going after adoption rights, for example. And these things are happening, and groups like Family Equality are the ones that are out there advocating for us to try to stop those, but also providing support and information and resources and education and everything else, so that if you have a family and want to know what to do next, or you're trying to start one, you have a place to go. And that's super important. And that, I'm really happy that we were able to say, look over here.
That's wonderful. And I'm glad that you guys were able to partner together to do this, and that we're able to have this conversation so even more people know about what Family Equality is doing. In terms of, things that nonprofits or, potential partners should know when creating collaborations like this, like what did you guys learn from this, or what pearls of wisdom could you dispel to let people know how to do this sort of thing?
I'll start there, and then I'll let you go. I think from a nonprofit point of view, as leaders, as decision makers, there's different opportunities that present itself in many different ways, right? And we don't have a lot of resources. We need to assess quickly many times and really think through what's going to have the greatest impact to further the mission, right? And so I think that these are those moments, right, for nonprofits where maybe they'll get a call, or they'll get something like that, and the partnership, the proven partnership of know who your partners are, I think is really important, right, for nonprofits. And the proven track record, RENEWPR, Ben and Mark, I mean, that was critical, right? Like that was critical. And many times you want to say yes to so much, but to know who they are, their shared values, their ability to bring people together was really critical for us as a nonprofit, saying, yeah, we're all in, right? Like we're gonna make this work because we know who they are, and where their sort of passion lies for us. So I think that was really critical as nonprofits think about that. And I will say this, I hope it's okay, but you really also put your money where your mouth is. You hosted it. You said, we're going to make a contribution. Like we're going all in with you all. And so there was no doubt, it was totally clear, like that you were here to support this organization. And I think that that's important for nonprofits to really think about who they're partnering with. And for us, this was definitely a no-brainer. And we came out with all the secret sauce. I hope folks are listening and really jump in on this, because I've been doing this for over 25 years. And this was an extraordinary event filled with impact, connectivity, and success to help us, forge forward as an organization. So.
Oh, thank you, Darra. That's lovely. I'm sure Mark wants to add something. I'll just say, I think from a practical standpoint, just to build on what Darra just said, it's really clear that you set expectations about what you're doing. So, we were like, we want this to be a fundraiser. We had no idea how people were going to respond. So we did put some money in, as I said before, as Darra just mentioned, because we wanted it to be successful. We didn't want to be like, well, we raised $3, So that's not required. That's not necessary. But for us, it was important to do that. It was also important for us to be really clear. Look, you're not going to have to pay for anything except for, Darra's travel to get to DC. We're going to pay for the food and beverage. We're going to pay, there was no event space. We didn't have to pay a fee for the event, but we're going to pay for, a step and repeat. We're going to do that stuff. So there isn't any additional cost to the organization, and all the money we raise is going to you. We're not using it to pay for the food and beverage and the lovely hors d'oeuvres and things like that. It's all going to you to fulfill your mission. And so for anyone thinking about this, I think you have to make sure you're really clear about that up front, how you want to structure it and what you want to do. And I would imagine that most nonprofits, if they know their organization, to Darra's point, would say yes, but I'm sure it helped that, look, this is free.
Well, and as the money person,
for
RENEWPR, I was like, okay. My thought was, we're going to do this anyway, right? We're going to have this event. We're going to go to the Georgetown Club. We're going to spend the money, and it's all going to be there. So, and that, but my thought was behind it was that it also has to be sincere. It can't just be this jaded, oh, we're going to get some good press from that. It's like, no, that's not what it can't be about that. It simply has to be about helping in an organization, and that has to be it. And so when it came to the money part, it was like, we just pay, it doesn't matter. We're not going to question it. We're not going to, oh, well, maybe we should. It was like, no, this is what we're going to do. And we have to come from a sincere point. We have to come from that view of it. So I think that hopefully came across in everything that we did, but it was in the back of my mind at all times to say, okay, this has to be, because there's a lot of criticism in our community about corporate sponsorship and all of that stuff. And we know that's it's a area that's a minefield sometimes for organizations to have to, you need the money, but do you want to do? So that's why it was very important that it be true and sincere, so that there was no question why we were doing it.
And I love your point around that, sort of through the lens of equity, right? Because a lot of times nonprofits, right, will be asked to speak or asked to do this, or, and again, it's very valuable. You get in front of folks, but the idea of the time, or even when you're pulling in, right, like guests or talent from marginalized communities to speak, people don't always really think through that lens of like, well, it's time and it's effort, and I'm asking somebody like, to do that. And so the way that you all thought about that and really were clear about the support and what that looks like through the lens of equity, like we don't have the funds to, pay for it, or we don't, it needs to go to the mission. And so that was, I appreciate you saying that. And I think that's a great sort of tip for folks to think about when they are partnering with nonprofits.
One other thing, I'm just looking at our comments here. Mark's nephew, Corbin, is putting nice comments on Facebook, so thank you, Corbin. But that goes back to the point that Darra was making and that Mark was making, about how this is personal. Mark said we don't have kids, right? But there are folks in our family who do. And there are folks in our extended family and friends who do. We know a lot of mostly gay male couples, but lesbian couples too, who have kids. And, we're constantly impressed and just blown away by what they do and what they have done to, bring little people into the world and bring them up right. And that's meaningful to us too. So yeah, this is personal, and I'm, apparently it comes through because from what Darra was saying, but that's helpful too. So for folks thinking about doing this, the more personal you make it, I think the more meaningful it is, and the more people connect to it.
Yes.
And it can be anything. It can be whatever topic makes sense for your organization, right? And for nonprofits going, well, where's our PR savior? It doesn't have to be a PR firm. I mean, this could be anybody sort of looking. This could be an organization or a company, and this is Pride Month. So back to Mark's point about corporations, one of the things that we talk about every June, and I've done countless interviews with Nicole over the years about being performative, right? Is corporations, organizations, folks trying to engage with our community, and every June they change their rainbow, their logo to rainbow, and then every June 30th it goes back. This is a way to do that, right? So if you're celebrating a corporate or organizational anniversary, or launch of a new product line, or moving to a new city, or whatever it might be, go find a nonprofit in that city and use your launch as an opportunity to raise money for that nonprofit. Put your money where your mouth is. Elevate them in the course of also talking about who you are and why that makes sense. There's lots of ways to do this, and all of them can be super helpful and can do something, which is, I think, what so many of us are really kind of crying out for, right? Like, there's no silver bullet. We're not going to solve all these things. Doing something is helpful. Let's move the ball forward, even if it's only a couple feet.
Yeah, and I was at the event, and everything felt very organic. You were there for a celebration, and then you ended up finding finding out about this wonderful organization. And like you said, everything just kind of fell into place, which I think sometimes you go to events and the fundraiser is not, it's not the star of the show, so to speak. It's kind of like, do they just like tack this on at the end? You have these swag bags worth like thousands of dollars at some places, but then, and then they're like, well, we're also supporting da 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 da. But you're kind of like, well, are you? Like, how much are you giving them from this? I don't know. But the other thing Darra had brought up before too was, making sure that it's the right fit. It's almost, nonprofits almost need to, or associations need to audit the partner that they're working with to make sure it is the right fit, to make sure it's not performative. And I mean, it's like that with anything nowadays in PR and comms. If you work with an influencer, you have to make sure like they're in line with your policies. If you work with a PR firm, you have to make sure that they're in line with your mission and they understand what you're doing. So I think that's another good point there is, if you say you are, you probably get a lot of, especially during Pride Month, well, maybe not so much this year, but in the past, I'm sure there's a lot of corporations that, wanted to step up and say, hey, we'd love to partner with you for Pride Month, blah, 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 blah. But, you look through their records and you're like, hey, this, you supported this campaign with this donation and that doesn't look right. And, reporters will find that stuff out and then it's just like, it's a mess. So I think, making sure that the partnership is, like you said, equitable and also, authentic really helps everybody in the process. Just another question for you guys. If in terms of PR and nonprofits, and this is probably more for Darra, but Ben, you guys have dealt with this too, both ways. For nonprofits seeking a PR partner, what advice would you give, and vice versa?
Absolutely. Call RENEWPR. That's my favorite. No, they did not. Told me I think it's so one, just in general, messaging and the media is so critical for nonprofits right now. I mean, I think it is for mission critical organizations, and having the right partner, one that is they're just skilled, right, at what they're doing. They understand how to cut through some of this media and how to cut through, the messaging to make sure that that's core and it's getting across. So one, making sure you're with a real pro, right? There's some great ones out there, but really finding an organization that, the second thing is, that understands your mission in a way, right? Social justice, equity, like this is, you can hire the best PR firm and they, again, are very dealing with other things that you're not used to. And you can really misstep. It could really it backfire. So I think it goes back to that connectivity, that authenticity, and really finding that right partner that knows your mission, understands that in their values, and has the capabilities and the skills to bring it forward in a really meaningful way.
And I guess the flip side, I would say, it's really important to understand the mission of the nonprofit and make sure that it aligns with your values, and that you feel you can do a good job for what they're trying to accomplish. And I think over the years, we've all sort of understood this, but it isn't just a paycheck. It isn't just, a monthly retainer. This is the livelihood of an organization, and it's their reputation and it's their work. And particularly with nonprofits, who are not operating with huge margins, right? They're really tight. You got to be careful with shepherding their money. So if you're going to take their money, you better be able to do something with it that is helpful and that is geared to what they want to get done. That's sort of obvious for PR folks. But I think the other part of that is really looking at and thinking about whether this is an organization that you think has a message that is going to be resonant for the folks that you know how to reach, or for the work that you want to do. Because not every, there's lots of great nonprofits out there. That doesn't mean they're all great partners for your particular firm or your particular effort. So really looking to see if it makes sense that way, and if they really have something to say. Family Equality's never had that problem. They got a lot to say.
No. We have another hour, we can get into that.
Right. They're super relevant, and they make an impact, but that's important. And then the last thing I'll say is, to the extent you can, and this is hard when you're starting out and you don't know, but if you can figure out what the team is like, I think part of the reason this event was so successful is that Family Equality has a really good team. And Tanya Agnew and Molly Luxander and all the folks that Lisa Van Ness, all the folks at Family Equality who behind the scenes made all this stuff happen, is partly why this was successful. And I think it's partly why they're getting done what they're getting done. And they're attracting someone like Darra to come in and be the new CEO, because they're getting it done. And that's really important too. And that, you can't say that about every group, unfortunately.
Then in your guys' position, do you usually have nonprofits coming to you looking for help, or, are you getting referrals, or is it, are you like, hey, we'd like to work with these people, or what is that process like?
A lot of referrals. I want to say Family Equality first came to us because of Bob Wittick, I think, but I'm not sure. All good things come from Bob Wittick, the father of modern gay PR, if you don't know. Go look up Wittick Communications. So I feel like it was probably Bob, but a lot of referrals. And then sometimes people, interestingly, people are using Google and just sort of Googling firms and then going and looking at them, or ChatGPT. They're putting into ChatGPT, I'm looking for a firm that does X, Y, Z. I want these criteria. I've had 2 organizations this year in the last, 5 months, tell us they went into ChatGPT with all their criteria and we popped out, which is fascinating. So I guess our SEO and other stuff we're doing must be okay.
Meteor, now it is called.
Typing. We'll put this in here.
So it's a combination of all of those things. And then sometimes us going to them like, hi, Darra, can we give you some money?
That works too. And audience, just so you guys know, if you have any questions for anybody here, please put them in the chat and we will get to them right now, very soon. Another question for you guys from me, as this is Pride Month, but these are issues that go beyond the month. So wondering, how do you move beyond performative allyship, especially, considering Pride Month, to real year-round action? What are your, some advice for people that might be more interested in doing that?
I will jump in. Love the question. Thanks for asking it. I think there's a number of things that folks can do depending upon who they are. There's the simple things of like at the dinner table, like educate, learn, that is listen, and then have a voice, right? Because not everybody has a voice, right? At some of the tables, the board of, if you're the Board of Education meetings, be out there as a community member, because we are here, right? We are here in the communities that you're living in. And so really being an active voice of allyship is critical. If you are in a business, right, inquire what are the protections, what are the supports that a company is doing to support, LGBTQ families or people, what type of insurance. I mean, these are basic questions, but again, building that in and looking at how can I support in my day-to-day? Am I doing an event? Am I, I'm out there, folks are out there. And so really thinking about what can I do? And there's a lot of, don't get overwhelmed. I think there's a question of like, how can I help? Pick something and move it forward, and then pick something else and move it forward. And so really every little ripple makes a huge wave. And so I think that if folks, everybody does something, will have a huge impact. Mm-hmm. And see our website. And that's the other thing. Come to our website and reach out. Sorry.
familyequality.org. I agree with everything that Darra just said. The other thing I would add is, if you're thinking about trying to, whether it's around LGBT issues or any issues, you have to realize I'm gay 365 days of the year, right? I mean, Pride Month is great because it gives us an excuse to talk about LGBT folks, and that's wonderful. I'll take it. That's great. You know, I'll take all the corporate support, like Mark was saying. But sometimes it becomes a crutch, and it becomes, well, we're just going to do it for the month of June, right? Like we're only going to talk about Black people in February, right? You know, well, you know, talk to any Black people, you know, they're Black 365 days a year too, you know? So it's taking a step back and looking at these opportunities as year-round opportunities that are less about PR and less about marketing and more about who you are as an organization and more about who you are as a statement of principles about what you believe in. So if you really believe in LGBTQ equality, talk about it and look for opportunities to, as you know, Darra was just saying, educate and raise awareness of it. That could be something as simple as partnering with a nonprofit like Family Equality year round to help educate, to help them raise money, to help them raise awareness. It could be something more specific like getting engaged in local politics and policy, right? And advocating for. It could be speaking out when, you know, you mentioned when we were off camera earlier, you're from Buffalo and you know, there was a horrible anti-gay murder in Buffalo earlier this year. Talk about those things. It has incredible power when organizations that seemingly have no connection to an issue or a community raise those things up and talk about them and raise awareness and honor the people and the situation by saying this is not kosher, right? This is not good. You know, just as we need to be talking about what happened in Colorado this week, the horrible, you know, attack on folks just protesting to bring the hostages home, right? Those kinds of things, look for those opportunities year round. And it could be a little small thing, like Darra's saying, something, or it could be something big, but it shouldn't just be a logo in June. It should be, you know, a series of activities and engagement around things that make sense for your organization. Pick the stuff that is tied back to who you are as a business or a company or an organization or, you know, an advocacy group, and do those things because they're part and parcel of who you are and they support your mission and your goals.
And maybe, you know, even look at your employees or, you know, talk to them and say, you know, what are things that, you know, that you care about, what impacts you, and, you know, maybe kind of go from there. I mean, employees are all different types of people, so they have all different types of needs and issues, and could be something that your organization could be a part of. The other thing too, I'm thinking about fundraising. I'm sure LGBTQ plus organizations get inundated with funds in June, but then the rest of the year, you know, it's kind of like you think about Thanksgiving, like the food banks get like inundated with turkeys and money and that, but it's a need all year round. So, you know, you don't necessarily have to have a partnership thing just in June when also it can be, you know, overwhelming and you might not get the support that you're looking for because everybody else is also, you know, battling for attendees or attention or those sorts of things. You know, think about it for the rest of the year too.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate you bringing that up. And just to add to that, inundated is also relative, right? So if you look at the LGBT, no, I mean, I think it is all year round, but if you look at the funding for LGBT specific organizations, it is a fraction of other funding opportunities. So there's been no civil rights movement or no movement that did not have allies. And I encourage folks, like, it could be personal because we all were, you know, it's about humanity and it's about equal rights. And if you care about social justice, that's personal, and that's personal enough to support and utilize your platform or utilize your thing. So I think I appreciate you bringing that up because you're right. It is June, which is great, and we'll take it. But we need to go deeper, I think, you know, as a society, and we really need to stand together because nobody's going to be able to do this alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, oh, I'm sorry. Did I?
No, I did have one kind of to piggyback on. You're talking about organizations and corporations coming together, and one of the things that I thought about was that you know when it's sincere. You know, it doesn't, we have things going on in our head. And so a corporation can say they support the community, but you kind of look at it and you think, you know, so the sincerity and the company has to have, truly has to have those values. They can't have those values for the sake of the bottom line. They have to be there. So when you're looking at partnerships, that's the area I think that's, for me, is important. That, you know, are we going to help you because what we're going to do for you will come across sincerely, will come across truthfully, will come across that people will believe it and listen to it and not think to themselves, you know, this is just you know, somebody trying to sell a product. So I think that's a really important thing, and I think we have it without even knowing it. You know, you've seen it. You've probably gone, yeah, I don't believe that. So I'm glad that we have that for this, but I think it's important in any, you know, kind of partnership that you get somebody who truly, you know, has your best interest.
I think that's key. And can I just toss one other thing in, Nicole, before you move on? Darra reminded me of this. I think, you know, she made the point about the amount of money going to LGBT groups is so small. The other thing that I want to make sure that we underline is there is this fallacy that the LGBTQ community is all rich white gay men. And that ain't it. And I'm reminded, so one of our clients is COPA, the LGBTQ Equality Lab, and they're really focused on bringing attention to the fact that for most LGBT people around the world, economic equity is a aspiration. It is not a reality. And there are, particularly folks in the global South, there are a whole lot of folks who are LGBTQ living in places that are not America, that don't have the economic means to do the things that we can do, that can't write a check for $5,000 to help family equality, that really need family equality, but don't necessarily have the access to that. So I think it's important that folks, you know, not dismiss, oh, those LGBT folks, they got what they need, right? The influx of funds in June is enough for all year long, right? Yeah. There's a whole lot of LGBT folks who are doing very well. That's fabulous. That's wonderful. But as a community, we are still paid less. We still have less opportunities, and we still have a much higher hurdle to climb for building families, for building generational wealth, for building equity, for simple equality, for living. You know, ask a trans person, and they'll tell you it's hard out here in these streets. And I think we need to remember that too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Before we go, and those were some good things that you guys had to say. Just wondering real quick, each of you, one takeaway that you have for folks watching today. Anybody want to start?
You go first.
You
want us to?
No, I'll go first. I think my one takeaway that I want folks to remember is to connect and action, right? So this is about tips. We've spent a little time here. Ben and Mark are incredible. They've given you some ideas of how to do it from a corporate standpoint. And I think I am going to do one takeaway is go out there and do something that means something in this world, and we'll be better for it.
Great.
For me, it's that we are stronger together. It always has been since I came out thousands of years ago. It has always been, you know, when we are together, we are so much better and we have so much more power. And so that's a feeling. And this just kind of, you know, it was like, yep, that's right.
Yep. We proved it. Yeah. The energy was incredible.
And I want to say two things. One, if you're getting a sense that Darra is incredible just from being, you know, watching her on LinkedIn, you should meet her in person, because what she said about lifelong friends, I was like, I want to be friends with this woman. The moment we met her in person, I was like, I want to hug. And so if you're getting it through the screen, it's even better in person. But my takeaway is don't be afraid to make the ask. And, you know, we did this just sort of because it meant something to us personally, but we had no idea if it was going to work. And it did. And I think the lesson here is do it, right? Make the ask, and don't assume that folks aren't going to want to be supportive. If you're putting something genuine and authentic and meaningful out there with good partners, don't assume that folks are going to, I don't know about that. I was blown away by the response and continue to be blown away by the response, as Darra mentioned before. And that was a big takeaway for me. You know, it's easy to be cynical and, you know, right now, but wow, the response and the support and just the humanity of people, you know, I think you saw it at the event, Nicole. That was my big takeaway, and an encouraging one.
Yep. I think people are looking for spaces where they can be empowered and feel like they can contribute and also learn more about things that they don't know a ton about. So, you know, it, like you said, never hurts to ask, never hurts to try. That's all you can do.
One other thought, can I just throw something else out? Because that's something I forgot. So I am also the co-founder of the Change Agencies, which is the national network of inclusive PR firms, 15 firms owned by people of color and LGBT people. And one of our members, one of my colleagues in the Change Agencies, called me up and said, you know, I saw that you postponed the party, and I just want to tell you, I want to encourage you to have this party. Whenever you're able to do it, I want to encourage you to have this party. You can't let them take away our joy. You can't, you know, there's lots of stuff, horrible things happening. And this was a person of color, actually a woman person of color. So she knows what she's talking about, right? She said, there's a whole lot of bad stuff happening right now. We're all feeling under attack and we're all feeling really bad, but you can't let them take away our joy. And that was just like, went right here.
Yeah.
You know, and immediately I was like, okay, yes, ma'am, you know, and that really fueled the conversation that we had when Mark came up with the idea that led to this. Was we're not letting them take away our joy. And in Pride Month, we're not doing it. And all year long, we're not doing it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, audience, too, for joining us today and for tuning in. This video from this live event is going to be shared on Family Equity's channels soon, in case you'd like to share it with your colleagues or rewatch it. We also have it over on PRNEWS' LinkedIn page if you're looking over there to watch more. We hope you all found some great ideas and inspiration, and I think this is a great way to kick off this month and beyond. And we hope that you continue to learn more about family equity and participate and find the spaces that work for you. Thank you all.
Thank you. And Nicole, just want to thank you. You said yes right away. So really appreciate it. A little hi, Cody. Thanks for the tip. We'll follow up with that fundraiser. Any others coming? But really thank you for doing this and stepping in. And Ben and Mark, I mean, I would give you all big, huge hugs too. They're virtual hugs. But I'm so moved and inspired by the community and our allies coming together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.